Part 1. The Garage Startup. One man, one garage, one crazy idea. Today, that idea is worth over $1 trillion. Hello everyone, I'm Archie, and welcome back to the channel. Today's story is about Amazon, how it started with just books and became the everything store. This is part 1 of our 5-part series. We'll spend about 12 minutes together, but don't worry. This story is written in simple, clear English, perfect for English learners. You'll hear about big risks, huge failures, and incredible success. And while you're enjoying the story, you'll be improving your English without even realizing it. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's begin. If you enjoy this, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. Ready? Let's go. Let me tell you a story. It's a story about a man, an idea, and a company that changed the world. It's the story of Amazon. Imagine it's 1994. The internet is new, very new. Most people don't have computers at home. The ones who do use them for word processing or playing simple games. The internet exists, but it's mostly used by universities, government agencies, and tech enthusiasts. There's no Google yet, no Facebook, no YouTube, no smartphones. If you want to buy a book, you go to a bookstore. You walk down the aisles, look at the covers, maybe ask the clerk for help. If you want to buy almost anything, you go to a physical store. You drive there, park your car, walk inside, find what you need, stand in line, and pay. Shopping online? That's science fiction. That's something from a futuristic movie. Nobody does that. Nobody even thinks about it. But one man saw something different. His name was Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos was 30 years old in 1994. He wasn't a college dropout working in his parents' garage. He wasn't a struggling entrepreneur trying to make ends meet. Quite the opposite. He had a good job on Wall Street in New York City. A very good job. He was a senior vice president at D.E. Shaw, a prestigious investment firm. He was successful. He was making good money, 6 figures, maybe more. He had a bright future in finance. People respected him. He could have stayed there for his entire career, made millions, retired comfortably. But he couldn't stop thinking about the internet. He was fascinated by it. He spent hours reading about it, learning about it, thinking about its potential. And then he read a statistic that changed his life. The internet was growing at 2,300% per year. Let me say that again, slowly. 2,300% per year. Not 23%, not 230%. 2,300%. He had worked in finance for years. He had seen markets grow, he had seen companies expand, he had analyzed growth rates and trends, but he had never, ever seen anything grow at 2,300% per year. It was almost unbelievable. And he thought, if the internet is growing this fast, there must be a business opportunity here. There must be something I can do, some way to build a company that takes advantage of this growth. So Jeff started thinking, what could he sell on the internet? It had to be something that made sense for online sales, something that would work better online than in traditional stores. He made a list. He was methodical about it. That was his style. He didn't just jump in randomly. He analyzed. He made a list of 20 different products. He thought about music CDs. He thought about computer software. He thought about office supplies. He thought about videos. He thought about books. He looked at each product category carefully. He considered the size of the market, the logistics of shipping, the competition, the profit margins. After careful analysis, he chose books. Why books? Books were perfect for several reasons. Let me explain each one. First, There are millions of books in the world. Millions. In 1994, there were about 3 million books in print in the English language alone. No physical bookstore could carry them all. It would be impossible. Even the largest bookstore in the world, the biggest Barnes& Noble or Borders superstore, might have 100,000 books. Maybe 200,000 if it was really big. But that's still only a small fraction of all the books available. An online bookstore could list them all, every single one. You could have a catalog of 3 million books. No walls, no rent for building space, no physical limitations, just a database. Second, books are easy to ship. They don't break easily like glass or electronics. They're not too heavy, at least most of them aren't. They don't need refrigeration like food. They don't need special handling like chemicals. They don't spoil or expire. They're simple products. You can put them in a box and mail them. Third, books have a standard format. Every copy of the same book is identical. If you order The Great Gatsby, it doesn't matter which copy you get. They're all the same. This is different from, say, clothes, where size and fit matter, or produce, where freshness matters. Books are consistent. This makes them easy to describe and sell online. You don't need to see them or touch them. And fourth, book distributors already existed. There were already companies that warehoused books and shipped them to bookstores. Jeff wouldn't need to create the entire supply chain from scratch. He could work with existing book distributors. He could be a middleman, connecting customers with distributors. So books made sense, perfect sense. But here's the thing. Jeff had a great job, a secure job. Why would he leave? This is where the story gets interesting. Jeff made a decision that seemed crazy to many people. He decided to quit his high-paying job and start an internet bookstore. His boss at D.E. Shaw tried to convince him to stay. They went for a long walk in Central Park. His boss said, "Jeff, this is a really good idea. I agree with you. The internet is going to be big. An online bookstore could work. But it would be an even better idea for someone who doesn't already have a good job. You have a great career here. Why risk it?" It was good advice, sensible advice, safe advice, but Jeff didn't take it. Why? Because Jeff had a framework for making decisions. He called it his regret minimization framework. Here's how it worked. He imagined himself at age 80, old, near the end of his life, looking back on his choices, and he asked himself, would I regret leaving Wall Street to try this internet thing, or would I regret not trying it? If he stayed at D.E. Shaw, would his 80-year-old self say, I'm glad I played it safe? Or would his 80-year-old self say, I wish I had taken that chance when I had it? The answer was clear, crystal clear. He would regret not trying. He wouldn't regret trying and failing. That would be okay. That would be a good story. But not trying at all, that would haunt him forever. So he made the leap. He quit. He walked away from financial security to chase a dream. In 1994, Jeff and his wife, Mackenzie, drove across the country from New York to Seattle. It was a road trip, a long road trip, about 3,000 miles. Why Seattle? There were specific reasons. Seattle was close to Roseburg, Oregon, where one of the largest book distributors in the country was located. Being close to the distributor would make logistics easier. And Seattle had something else, talent. Microsoft was in Seattle. The tech industry was growing there. There were lots of computer programmers, software engineers, technical people. People who understood the internet. People who could help build what Jeff wanted to build. During that long drive across America, Jeff worked. Mackenzie drove while Jeff sat in the passenger seat with a laptop computer typing. He was writing the business plan, thinking through the details. How would the website work? How would they process orders? How would they handle payments? How would they ship books? He was planning, preparing, getting ready. They arrived in Seattle and rented a house, a modest house in the suburbs, and Jeff started his company in the garage. Yes, just like the stories you've heard about Apple and Google and Hewlett-Packard, Amazon started in a garage. It's almost a cliché in the tech industry, but it's true. The garage was small. There was barely room for a couple of desks and some computers, but it was enough to start. But first, before anything else, he needed a name. What should he call this company? He considered several names. He brainstormed. He made lists. One idea was cadabra, as in abracadabra, the magic word. It sounded mysterious, magical, but there was a problem. When he said cadabra on the phone to people, they often heard cadaver. A cadaver is a dead body. Not exactly the image you want for your new business, so that was out. Then he had another idea. He wanted a name that started with A. Why? Because in those days, many internet directories and lists showed websites in alphabetical order. A name starting with A would appear at the top of the list. First position, maximum visibility. He also wanted a name that suggested something big, something vast, something impressive, something that would capture the imagination. He opened a dictionary and started reading through it. A words. Amazon. He stopped. The Amazon River. Perfect. Think about the Amazon River. It's the biggest river in the world by volume. It carries more water than any other river. It flows through rainforests with millions of species of plants and animals. It's vast, diverse, exotic, powerful. The name suggested scale. It suggested variety. It suggested something big and important. So on July 5th, 1994, Amazon.com was registered. The company had a name. Now Jeff needed to build it. This is where we'll end part 1. We've seen how Jeff Bezos made the bold decision to leave his secure job and start an internet bookstore. We've seen why he chose books and how he chose the name Amazon. In part 2, we'll see how Amazon actually launched, how they got their first customers, and how they started to grow. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in part 2. Part 2, Launch and Early Growth. Welcome back. I'm Archie, and this is part 2 of our Amazon story. In part 1, we saw how Jeff Bezos decided to start an internet bookstore and drove across America to Seattle. Now, we'll see how Amazon actually launched and began to grow. Let's continue the story. Jeff hired a few employees, people he knew, people who believed in the vision, people willing to take a risk on an unproven idea. They were smart, young, energetic. They worked in the garage. They built desks out of old doors, literally. They went to Home Depot, bought old doors, attached legs to them, and used them as desks. Why? Because doors were cheaper than real desks. They were bootstrapping, saving money wherever they could. Every dollar mattered. They worked long hours, nights, weekends, all the time. They had a vision to be Earth's most customer-centric company, to build a place where people could find and buy anything they wanted online. But anything would come later. First, books. They needed to build a website. And remember, this was 1994. Most people had never bought anything online, ever. There were no examples to follow, no templates, no how to build an e-commerce website for dummies books. There were no shopping cart software packages you could just download and install. They had to figure everything out themselves. They had to invent it. Jeff and his small team wrote the code from scratch. They created the database that would store information about books. They worked with book distributors to get access to their catalogs. They figured out how to process credit card payments online. This was particularly tricky. In 1994, people were scared to put their credit card numbers on the internet. They thought hackers would steal them. The technology for secure online payments was new and untested. But they solved these problems, one by one. They worked through them. They tested everything. They fixed bugs. They improved the design. Finally, in July 1995, Amazon.com launched. 1 year after the company was founded, the website was simple, very simple by today's standards. No fancy graphics, no photos of book covers, at least not at first. Just lists of books you could search through. You could type in an author name or a book title, and the website would show you what was available. You could click to add it to your cart. You could enter your payment and shipping information, and then you would wait for the book to arrive in the mail. At first, they had one test customer, a friend of an employee, then another customer, then another. The growth started slowly, but then something amazing happened, something that showed the power of the internet. Within the first month, without any press coverage, without any advertising, without any marketing budget at all, Amazon had sold books to people in all 50 US states and 45 countries. Let that sink in. All 50 states, 45 countries. From a garage in Seattle, a small company with a handful of employees reached customers everywhere. The internet made this possible. A local bookstore could only serve people in its neighborhood, maybe people in its city, but an internet company could serve the whole world. Every time they got an order, a bell would ring in the office. They had set up a system where a bell would ding to alert everyone that someone had just ordered a book. In the beginning, they would gather around and celebrate. Another order, another customer. They were excited. But very soon, the bell was ringing constantly. Ding, 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 all day long. It became too distracting. People couldn't concentrate. They had to turn the bell off. The company grew fast, very fast, faster than they had anticipated. They moved out of the garage into a real office, then a bigger office, then an even bigger one. They hired more people, lots of people. They shipped more and more books, but there was a problem. They were growing so fast, they couldn't keep up. They didn't have proper systems in place. Remember, they were making this up as they went along. In the early days, Jeff and his employees would pack books on the floor. They would kneel on the hard concrete floor, put books in boxes, tape them up, address them, and get them ready to ship. It was manual labor. It was tiring. Jeff's knees hurt badly. He was kneeling on concrete for hours every day. His knees were bruised and sore. One day he said to his employees, "We need knee pads. We should buy knee pads so our knees don't hurt so much." One of his employees looked at him and said, "Or we could buy packing tables." Jeff stopped. Packing tables. Of course. Why were they kneeling on the floor? They should be standing at tables. This might seem obvious now. Any warehouse or shipping operation uses packing tables. But in those intense, fast-growing early days, they were so focused on keeping up with orders that they hadn't thought about basic improvements. They bought packing tables. Problem solved. This story illustrates something important about Amazon's early days. They were learning everything as they went. They made mistakes. They found solutions. They improved constantly. As Amazon grew, competition appeared. Other companies saw that online bookselling might work. They wanted to compete. And the biggest competitor was Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble was the largest bookstore chain in America. They had hundreds of stores across the country. Everyone knew the brand. They had lots of money. They had relationships with publishers. They had expertise in the book industry. In 1997, Barnes& Noble launched their own website, barnesandnoble.com. Many people thought this was the end for Amazon. How could a small startup compete with Barnes& Noble? Barnes& Noble had everything: brand recognition, thousands of physical stores, deep pockets, industry knowledge. Some analysts predicted Amazon would be crushed, but Jeff wasn't worried. Why? Because Amazon had advantages. Amazon was built for the internet from the very beginning. Every decision, every system, every process was designed for online sales. They didn't have physical stores to worry about. They didn't have to think about rent for retail space, or paying staff to work in stores, or managing inventory in hundreds of locations. They could focus entirely on one thing: making the best online experience possible. And they had something else, something powerful: data. Every time a customer bought a book, Amazon learned something. What books did people buy together? What did people search for? What did people click on? What did people put in their cart but not buy? Amazon collected all this data, millions and millions of data points. And they used it to make better recommendations. They created a feature that became famous. It was called "Customers Who Bought This Also Bought." Here's how it worked. If you looked at a book about gardening, Amazon would show you other books that customers who bought gardening books also purchased. Maybe books about organic vegetables, or books about landscaping, or tools for gardening. This was revolutionary. In a physical bookstore, you might ask the clerk for recommendations, but the clerk's recommendations were based on their personal knowledge and experience. Maybe they had read a few hundred books. Maybe they talked to customers occasionally. But Amazon's recommendations were based on millions of purchases from hundreds of thousands of customers. The system got smarter every day. The more people bought, the better the recommendations became. It was a virtuous cycle. Amazon also focused intensely on customer service. This was part of being Earth's most customer-centric company. They wanted every customer to be happy, not just satisfied. Happy, delighted. If there was a problem with an order, they would fix it immediately, even if it cost them money. If a book arrived damaged, they would send a new one right away. If a customer wasn't happy for any reason, they would make it right. They offered easy returns. Most stores made returns difficult. You had to bring the item back, have your receipt, explain why you were returning it, maybe pay a restocking fee. Amazon made it simple. Not happy? Send it back. We'll refund your money. No questions asked. They responded quickly to emails. In those days, email was the main way to contact companies online. If a customer sent an email, Amazon would respond within hours, often sooner. They built trust, and trust was essential. Remember, in the 1990s, people were nervous about buying things online. They worried about credit card fraud. They worried about getting scammed. They worried that they would send money and never receive the product. Amazon had to overcome this fear. They did it by being reliable, honest, and customer-focused, always. The company continued to grow. The growth was remarkable. In 1997, just 2 years after launching the website, Amazon went public. This means they sold shares of the company to investors on the stock market. Anyone could buy stock in Amazon. The IPO, or initial public offering, valued the company at $300 million. Just 3 years earlier, it had been an idea in Jeff Bezos' head while driving across the country. Now it was worth $300 million. Jeff owned about 40% of the company. On paper, at age 33, he was worth about $120 million. But Jeff didn't care much about the money, at least not for personal spending. He still lived modestly. He drove an old Honda Accord. He didn't buy a mansion or a yacht. He cared about the vision. He wanted to build something that would last, something important, something that would change the world. In his first letter to shareholders, a letter that became famous in business circles, he wrote about thinking long-term. He said Amazon would make decisions based on what would help the company grow over many years, not what would make the most profit in the next quarter. This was unusual, very unusual. Most companies, especially public companies, focus on quarterly earnings. Every 3 months, they report their profits to shareholders. If profits go down, the stock price drops. Shareholders get angry. CEOs get fired. So most companies do whatever they can to keep quarterly profits up. They cut costs. They delay investments. They focus on the short term. But Jeff said Amazon would be different. Amazon would invest in growth, even if it meant losing money in the short term. This is where we'll end part 2. We've seen Amazon launch, get its first customers, and start growing rapidly. We've seen how they competed with Barnes & Noble and went public. In part 3, we'll see how Amazon survived a major crisis and started becoming the everything store. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you in part 3. Part 3, Survival and Transformation. Welcome back. I'm Archie, and this is part 3 of our Amazon story. In the previous parts, we saw Amazon launch and grow rapidly. Now we'll see how Amazon survived a major crisis and transformed into something much bigger than a bookstore. Let's continue. And for many years, Amazon did lose money. Every quarter, year after year. They took all the revenue they made from selling books and poured it back into the company. They built warehouses, which they called fulfillment centers, big buildings where they could store inventory and ship orders quickly. They bought more computers and servers to handle the growing website traffic. They hired more people, hundreds of people, then thousands. They improved the website constantly, adding new features, making it faster, making it easier to use. They expanded to other countries. They launched Amazon.co.uk in the United Kingdom, Amazon.de in Germany, Amazon.fr in France. Each new country required new infrastructure, new employees, new logistics. It was expensive, and they started selling more than books. This was the next big step. The vision was always to be the everything store, but they started with books because books made sense. Now they were ready to expand. In 1998, Amazon started selling music CDs and DVDs. This made sense. CDs and DVDs were similar to books. Easy to ship, standard format, non-perishable. Then they added electronics, cameras, computers, phones. This was more complex. Electronics were more expensive, more fragile, more likely to have problems. They needed better packaging. They needed to handle returns and warranties. But they figured it out. Then they added toys. This was especially important for the Christmas season. Toys were a huge category. Parents shopping for their children, grandparents shopping for grandchildren. The toy business was seasonal, with most sales happening in November and December. Then they added tools and hardware. Then kitchen items. Then clothes. Then sporting goods. Then everything. Literally everything. People started calling it the everything store. You could buy almost anything on Amazon. Each new product category brought new challenges. When Amazon started selling toys, they had to learn about toy safety regulations. Different countries had different rules about what toys were safe for children. They had to make sure they weren't selling anything dangerous. When they started selling electronics, they had to handle warranties and technical support. What if a camera breaks? What if a computer doesn't work? They needed systems to handle these issues. When they started selling food and groceries, They had to deal with expiration dates and temperature control. Some items needed to be refrigerated. Some would spoil quickly. The logistics became very complex. But Amazon learned. They built systems. They hired experts. They invested in technology. They got better and better. One of Jeff Bezos' favorite sayings was, "It's always day one." What does this mean? It means that every day at Amazon should feel like the first day of a startup company, full of energy, innovation, urgency, and customer focus. Never comfortable, never settled, never finished, never saying, "We've made it, now we can relax." Always improving, always inventing, always moving forward. This philosophy kept Amazon from becoming complacent. Even as they grew bigger, they tried to maintain a startup mentality. In the late 1990s, something strange happened in the stock market. It was called the dot-com bubble. Many internet companies had gone public. Their stock prices were very high, ridiculously high in some cases. Companies with no profits and no clear path to profits were worth billions of dollars. Why? Because investors were excited about the internet. They believed that internet companies would change everything. They wanted to get in early. They wanted to invest before these companies became huge. So they bought stock in any company with .com in its name. It didn't matter if the company had a good business model. It didn't matter if the company was making money. The stock price went up anyway. Amazon's stock price went up too. By 1999, it had reached over $100 per share. Jeff Bezos appeared on the cover of Time magazine as Person of the Year. Amazon seemed unstoppable. But there was a problem. Most of these internet companies weren't actually making money. They were spending money, lots of money, on advertising, on growth, on fancy offices. They had revenue, but they had even more expenses. Eventually, investors started to realize this. They started asking hard questions. When will these companies be profitable? How will they ever make money? In 2000, the bubble burst. The stock market crashed. Internet stocks collapsed. Many internet companies went bankrupt almost overnight. They ran out of money and shut down. Hundreds of companies disappeared. Thousands of people lost their jobs. Investors lost billions of dollars. Some people said the internet was overhyped. Some said e-commerce would never work. Some said people would always prefer shopping in physical stores. Amazon's stock price fell too, dramatically. It dropped from over $100 per share to just $6. $6. It lost more than 90% of its value. People who had invested their savings in Amazon stock lost almost everything. Many people thought Amazon would go bankrupt. Financial analysts wrote articles predicting Amazon's demise. Even some Amazon employees were worried. They wondered if they should look for other jobs. But Jeff Bezos stayed calm. He believed in the vision. He knew that if Amazon kept focusing on customers, kept improving, kept innovating, eventually the business would succeed. He didn't panic. He didn't make desperate moves. He stayed the course. And he was right. While hundreds of other internet companies failed and disappeared, Amazon survived. And not only survived, but grew stronger. Why did Amazon survive when so many others failed? Because Amazon had a real business. They were actually selling real products to real customers. They were generating real revenue. Yes, they were losing money because they were investing in growth, but the core business was sound. They weren't a company based on hype or a gimmick. They were solving real problems for customers. During this difficult time, Jeff Bezos was thinking about the future. He wasn't just focused on surviving. He was thinking about what would come next. He asked himself, What will people need in 10 years? What will they need in 20 years? One thing he realized was that as Amazon grew, they were building massive computer infrastructure. They had thousands of servers running the website. They had sophisticated software for managing inventory, processing orders, handling payments, tracking shipments. They had databases storing information about millions of products and customers. They had experts who knew how to manage all this technology. And Jeff had an interesting thought. Other companies need this too. Small startups don't want to buy and maintain their own servers. It's expensive. It's complicated. They don't want to hire experts to manage infrastructure. They want to focus on their business, their product, their customers. What if Amazon could rent out its infrastructure? What if other companies could use Amazon's servers and software? They could pay only for what they used. No large upfront investment. No maintenance headaches. No need to hire specialists. Just reliable computing power on demand. This idea seems strange at first. Why would Amazon, an online retailer, sell technology services? It seemed random. It seemed like a distraction from the core business of selling products. But Jeff understood something important. He understood that cloud computing would transform how companies operated. He understood that this could be huge. This idea became Amazon Web Services, or AWS. It launched in 2006, starting with simple services. At first, AWS offered basic storage. Companies could store their data on Amazon servers instead of buying their own. Then they added computing power. Companies could run their software on Amazon servers. Then they added databases, then networking, then more and more services. This is where we'll end part 3. We've seen how Amazon survived the dot-com crash and started expanding beyond books. We've seen the birth of AWS. In part 4, we'll see how Amazon revolutionized retail with Prime and Kindle, and how they became truly dominant. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you in part 4. Part 4, Revolution and Dominance. Welcome back. I'm Archie, and this is part 4 of our Amazon story. We've seen Amazon survive the dot-com crash and launch AWS. Now, we'll see how Amazon revolutionized retail with game-changing innovations. Let's continue. At first, AWS customers were mostly small startups. These were companies that couldn't afford to build their own infrastructure. They were perfect customers for AWS. They would start small, maybe spending a few dollars per month. But as they grew, they would spend more. And they would keep using AWS because switching would be difficult and expensive. But gradually, bigger companies started using AWS too. They realized it was cheaper and easier than managing their own data centers. Companies like Netflix, which streams video to millions of customers, decided to run entirely on AWS. They need enormous computing power and bandwidth. And they decided to trust all of that to Amazon's infrastructure. Spotify, the music streaming service, ran on AWS. Airbnb, the vacation rental platform, ran on AWS. Thousands of smaller companies ran on AWS. Even some government agencies started using AWS. The CIA, America's intelligence agency, signed a major contract with AWS. AWS became absolutely critical to the internet. Today, a huge percentage of websites and apps rely on AWS. If AWS goes down, much of the internet stops working. For Amazon, AWS became a goldmine. Unlike retail, which has thin profit margins, AWS has very high profit margins. When you're selling physical products like books or clothes, You might make only a few percent profit, but when you're selling cloud computing services, the margins are much higher. For many years, AWS was the only part of Amazon that made significant profits. The retail business was still losing money or barely breaking even because Amazon kept investing every dollar back into growth. But AWS made billions in profit every year, and that money allowed Amazon to keep expanding retail. In 2005, while AWS was being developed, Amazon launched something that would change retail forever. It was called Amazon Prime. The idea was simple. For $79 per year, customers would get free 2-day shipping on most items. That's it. Unlimited, free 2-day shipping for a flat annual fee. When Jeff proposed this idea internally, many Amazon executives were skeptical. Some were strongly opposed. They thought it was crazy. They ran the numbers and said, "Jeff, we'll lose money on every shipment. Shipping is expensive. If we offer unlimited free shipping, customers will order all the time. We'll go bankrupt." But Jeff understood something deeper about human psychology. He understood that the word free is powerful, very powerful. If customers knew they could get free, fast shipping, they would shop differently. They wouldn't comparison shop as much. They would come to Amazon first for everything. Prime wasn't really about shipping. It was about changing customer behavior. It was about creating loyalty. Think about it this way. If you pay $79 for a Prime membership, you want to get your money's worth. So, you start ordering more things from Amazon. You stop checking other websites. You think, "I'm already paying for Prime, so I might as well use it." And it worked brilliantly. Prime members bought much, much more than non-Prime members. Studies showed that Prime members spent about twice as much per year on Amazon. They came to Amazon for everything. Prime created a psychological lock-in. Once you became a Prime member, it was very hard to leave. Over time, Amazon added more benefits to Prime. They added streaming video, like Netflix. They added streaming music, like Spotify. They added free ebooks. They added exclusive deals. Prime became more and more valuable. Today, there are over 200 million Prime members worldwide. That's $20 billion or more in membership fees every year. Before selling a single product, in 2007, Amazon launched the Kindle. The Kindle was an e-reader designed for reading books. It used special e-ink technology that looked like real paper. You could read in bright sunlight. The battery lasted for weeks, and you could carry thousands of books in one device. E-readers had existed before, but the Kindle was different. Amazon made buying books incredibly easy. You could browse the Kindle store right from the device. You could buy a book with one click, and the book would download in less than 60 seconds. Instant gratification. The first Kindles sold out in 5.5 hours. Amazon couldn't keep it in stock for 5 months. People loved it. The Kindle changed publishing. E-books became popular. People could self-publish books easily. Amazon became not just a bookstore, but a publisher too. Publishers weren't happy. They said Amazon was devaluing books. There were battles over pricing, but readers loved the convenience and lower prices. Meanwhile, Amazon was building infrastructure at an incredible pace. They opened fulfillment centers all over the world. These were sophisticated, highly automated facilities. Inside, you would see robots moving shelves of products. Computer systems tracked everything. Amazon also built their own logistics network. They bought airplanes and created Amazon Air. They bought trucks. They recruited drivers. In some cities, Amazon delivery vans were everywhere. All of this was expensive. Billions in investment. but it gave Amazon advantages that competitors couldn't match. Walmart tried to compete online, so did Target, but they couldn't offer the same selection, prices, and delivery speed. As Amazon grew, criticism grew too. Labor activists investigated working conditions in warehouses. Reports described difficult, demanding work. Workers said the pace was grueling. They had strict time targets, limited breaks. Some said they barely had time for bathroom breaks. Amazon defended their practices. They said they paid competitive wages and offered benefits. They raised minimum wage to $15 per hour, but critics said it wasn't enough. Small business owners complained too. They said Amazon used marketplace data to create competing products. Amazon Basics versions would appear and undercut original sellers. Privacy advocates worried about data collection. Amazon knew what you bought, searched for, watched, read, asked Alexa, everything. Some people found this helpful. Others found it creepy. Politicians started arguing that Amazon had become too powerful, too dominant. Elizabeth Warren proposed breaking up big tech companies, including Amazon. Others disagreed, saying Amazon's success came from serving customers well. By 2014, Amazon launched Echo, a smart speaker with Alexa. You could talk to Alexa naturally, ask questions, play music, control smart home devices, order products. Echo became incredibly popular, but it raised privacy concerns. The device was always listening. In 2017, Amazon bought Whole Foods for $13.7 billion. An online retailer buying physical stores, the grocery industry panicked. Amazon also opened Amazon Go stores with no checkout lines. You walked in, took what you wanted, and walked out. Cameras and sensors tracked everything. Your account was charged automatically. It felt like magic, but it raised concerns about job elimination. This is where we'll end Part 4. We've seen Amazon revolutionize retail with Prime, Kindle, and AWS. We've seen them expand into voice assistants and physical stores. We've also seen growing criticism. In the final part, we'll see what happened during COVID, how Jeff stepped down, and what lessons we can learn. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you in Part 5. Part 5. Peak and Legacy. Welcome to Part 5, the final part of our Amazon story. I'm Archie. We've followed Amazon from a garage to global dominance. Now, we'll see what happened during the pandemic, how Jeff Bezos stepped down, and what this remarkable story teaches us. Let's finish the story. By 2020, Jeff Bezos had become the richest person in the world. His wealth exceeded $200 billion at the peak. This came from his Amazon stock. As Amazon's value approached $2 trillion, his 11% stake was worth over $200 billion. But what does someone do with that much money? Jeff bought some expensive things. Houses in multiple cities, one of the largest private yachts in the world, that cost about $500 million. But his real passion was space exploration. He founded Blue Origin in 2000 with the goal of making space travel accessible. He invested $1 billion per year from selling Amazon stock. In 2021, he flew to space on a Blue Origin rocket. Some people found this inspiring. Others criticized it as a vanity project when people were suffering on Earth. Jeff also bought The Washington Post for $250 million in 2013. He generally didn't interfere with editorial independence and invested in journalism. Then came 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic changed everything. Governments ordered lockdowns. Physical stores closed. People stayed home. They couldn't shop normally. They turned to the internet. They turned to Amazon. Orders surged dramatically. Amazon couldn't keep up. Delivery times stretched from 2 days to a week or more. Items were out of stock. Amazon responded by hiring hundreds of thousands of workers in months. They opened more warehouses. They bought more vehicles. Amazon warehouse workers were essential workers. They had to keep showing up during the pandemic. This was dangerous. Some workers got sick. Some died. Workers demanded better safety measures and hazard pay. Amazon implemented some measures like masks and temperature checks. They gave a temporary raise. But some workers said it wasn't enough. There were protests at some facilities. Despite challenges, Amazon's business boomed. Revenue soared. Stock price soared. Jeff Bezos' wealth increased by billions during the pandemic. This created an uncomfortable contrast. While millions struggled financially, one person got billions richer. It highlighted extreme wealth inequality. In February 2021, Jeff made a major announcement. After 27 years as CEO, he was stepping down. Andy Jassy, who ran AWS, would become CEO. Jeff would become executive chairman, focusing on Blue Origin, philanthropy, and other projects. The transition happened in July 2021. For the first time since 1994, Jeff wasn't CEO. It was the end of an era. But Amazon continued smoothly without him. So what can we learn from this story? First, timing matters enormously. Jeff started at exactly the right moment. The internet was ready, but competition was limited. Second, obsessive customer focus creates loyalty. Amazon always asked, will this make customers happier? This created enormous trust. Third, long-term thinking creates advantages. Amazon invested in the future while competitors focused on quarterly profits. Fourth, willingness to experiment is essential. Amazon tried many things that failed, but also succeeded brilliantly with AWS, Prime, and Kindle. Fifth, data is power. Amazon collected information about shopping behavior and used it to make better decisions. Sixth, scale creates self-reinforcing advantages. As Amazon grew, they gained more benefits that attracted more customers in a virtuous cycle. But the story also raises difficult questions. How much power should one company have? Amazon dominates many industries. Is this healthy? How should we balance worker welfare with efficiency? The work is demanding. Should we accept this for convenience? How should wealth be distributed? Should one person have $200 billion while workers struggle? How do we preserve privacy? Amazon knows enormous amounts about our lives. These questions have no easy answers. There are genuine trade-offs. Society must find the right balance. Looking ahead, Amazon continues expanding. They're investing in artificial intelligence, working on delivery drones, expanding healthcare, growing entertainment, entering new global markets. Some predict continued growth. Others think they've peaked and will face more regulation and competition. But Amazon has already changed the world permanently. We expect fast delivery now, easy returns, personalized recommendations. These expectations apply everywhere, not just Amazon. The story of Amazon is about vision, determination, and scale, about seeing opportunity and pursuing it relentlessly, about building systems that serve hundreds of millions efficiently, about how technology transforms industries, but it's also about power and responsibility, about unintended consequences, about how success creates new problems while solving old ones. Amazon made shopping convenient, but put small retailers out of business, created jobs, But some are demanding, innovated brilliantly, but accumulated enormous power. As you go through life, notice how often you encounter Amazon, ordering products, watching Prime Video, asking Alexa, using apps that run on AWS. Amazon is everywhere in modern life. Understanding Amazon's story helps us understand our world, how we got here, what forces shaped modern commerce, what trade-offs we made for convenience. It also helps us think about the future. If Amazon grew from garage to giant in 30 years, what else is possible? What transformations might we see next? The Amazon story isn't finished. New chapters are written daily. The company continues evolving. New challenges emerge. The Everything Store is still being built, and Amazon's impact will be studied and debated for generations. Future students will analyze it as a case study. Economists will examine its market effects. Labor scholars will study employment practices. Technology historians will document how Amazon helped create the digital age of commerce. The story of Amazon is really the story of our transition from physical to digital, from stores to online, from books to e-readers, from clerks to Alexa. This transition happened remarkably quickly, with Amazon at the center. Thank you for joining me on this 5-part journey through Amazon's story. I hope you learned something about business and technology. I hope you improved your English, and I hope you gained insights into one of the most important companies of our time. If you enjoyed this series, please like these videos, subscribe to the channel, and share with friends learning English. Thank you for watching and learning with me. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep thinking critically about the world. This is Archie, signing off.